Time to check in with our CJAD 800 legal contributor. That is Chris Dimakos. And Chris, interesting story that you've come across. And this has to do, and apparently it's getting a lot of buzz, with lawyers' letters going out from schools to parents. What's going on here exactly?
Right. So there was some research done recently interviewing all the school boards and the schools. And what they're noticing is in record numbers, hundreds and hundreds of lawyers' letters going out to parents basically saying you shouldn't come onto school grounds anymore. Please refrain from sending those types of emails. And in some cases, there's police involved. And what the school boards and the schools are saying is they've never had a situation like we're in right now where parents are as aggressive, as intimidating, and the staff on board feels like they need intervention to keep their workplace safe. And many times it involves bus drivers or coaches of sporting teams on the school. So there's no question there's a lot of aggression and animosity. And sometimes it's the school being very diligent, and sometimes maybe the parents feel like they haven't done anything wrong. It's just the school unfairly targeting them. But there's no question that this conflict is more prevalent than we've ever seen before.
As you describe this situation, I think to myself, I can't even remember a time when, a lawyer's letter would have been sent to a parent. Usually it'd be someone in the school, an administrator, principal, whatever, reaching out directly to a parent. This is this is 180 degrees from something like that.
It is. And what the most of the people interviewed from the schools said that it's happened since COVID. And they're not the only ones to be talking about that. If you talk to some of the sporting associations like Hockey Quebec, for example, they've also stated that the fighting between parents in the stands and with coaches has gone up since COVID. And many are equating just the living conditions. People are dealing with a lot more debt. With the rates have gone up, inflation has gone up. A lot of things, a lot of pressures in their daily lives have turned for the worse. And sometimes they're taking it out on, if their little daughter or son is having an issue at school, well, that's the straw that broke the camel's back, and they're all of a sudden they can't control their emotions. So it's very important if you're a parent and you're dealing with a school. It's very important that if you want to get results and if you want to progress, you don't let emotions stop that from happening. Because the minute you become or get labeled as a parent who is aggressive and intimidating, you're not going to get any results. You're not going to get any achievements. The only thing you're going to be getting is letters from lawyers saying you're not allowed on school grounds unless they authorize you, and then it just becomes a mess from there. So there is a legal transfer of parental authority when your kid is dropped off at school. We know that. And if you're unhappy with that, if you're unhappy with the way the school is handling the parental authority of your child, it's okay to intervene. It's okay to communicate with the school, but you have to make sure that you don't let the emotions get the best of you, because when you do, that's almost a strategic time for a school to say, we're stopping these discussions. You can't communicate with us in a decent manner. You're aggressive, you're intimidating, and then nothing gets done from that point on. So, it's important. I know it's your child, and I know there's a lot of emotion when your child's going through a difficult time. But as much as possible, if you're not able to do the communicating, well, maybe have someone else help you with that, because I've never seen, when lawyers get involved, I've never seen a situation get back to normal. I've never seen it go back to everything is fine now. We get along great with our teachers in school. Yeah. It usually just regresses from there.
But look, to this end, and this is not just apparently according to this article and what you're noting here, this is not a couple of cases. This seems to be happening across the board, right? In other words, schools or teachers have had just about enough. And if they can't get anywhere with the parent directly, this is what they're doing as a last resort. How does it play out if you're a parent who gets one of those letters? What's your option here?
Right. The first thing you want to do, if you're a parent and you get a letter like this, things are already bad. You don't want to act irrationally when you get one of these things, okay? Because things will progress and get worse and worse and worse. What you want to do is you want to reestablish basically what happened, why this letter was unnecessary, and you want to basically establish terms of communication. I need to communicate with the school. I need to be able to let them know what I'm okay with, what I'm not okay with, what's happening with my child. If there's a problem with his bullying, or for whatever reason, whatever's happening, whatever conflict is causing this relationship to deteriorate, you have to establish some means of communication. What you don't want to have happen is where all communication is cut off by the school, and then you have no ways of communicating with them. And the way to do that is to basically reiterate that, the way we're going to do things, there will be no risk of any aggression or any type of flare-ups. We can do so in writing. We can do so by email. We can even choose to limit the number of times we speak. But the one thing I would say you want to safeguard when you have a relationship go down the tubes with your school is you have to keep those lines of communication open, because once they shut down, well, then there's nothing else you can do. If the school does not want to hear from you and they don't want to hear from emails from you, well, then there's very little you can do as a parent. And you might even consider changing schools at that point, because not being able to communicate with your kid's school is not something every parent wants to have, in their daily lives, dealing with all the issues that you might have come up in a school year.
Okay. So I would ask, though, ostensibly, right, what is this lawyer's letter from the school, if we can just talk generally here, asking a parent to do or asking a parent to stop doing?
Right. So in just to give you some examples, there's, I think, 200 lawyers' letters within this school year, based on 3 or 4 school boards, and the majority of them were parents were told you are no longer allowed to come onto school premises, you are no longer allowed to communicate with us by email. The only time that you can come to school is if we authorize you beforehand with school officials. I mean, it's getting really bad here, and that parents that are receiving these letters are they're not all angels. They've done some stuff that's unacceptable, but it just goes to show you that this is a very difficult situation. That we're talking about hundreds within a couple of school boards. I can only imagine what the number is across the province. So things are bad when the economy is bad, when debt is very high, and we're seeing that delinquencies. People are going through a very difficult time, and sometimes it spills over into these other areas like your kid's school. So it's important, if you are a parent, you're dealing with some of these problems, try not to let your emotions get the best of you. You have to get help and try to reestablish just a regular line of communication, because if your kids' well-being are at stake, you don't want to have all that go to waste just because you were unable to deal with all the different stresses that's going on in your life.
So just as a final question, you get this letter, you're the parent, as you're saying, you realize at that point this is serious now. If you got a lawyer's letter from your child's school, you should contact the school, say, I acknowledge that you received the letter and you're going to follow what's being asked. Is that the next step, or where does it go?
Well, first of all, what you want to have from a lawyer is you want to have an opinion on whether or not the school's response or letter was measured. Was it overkill or was it measured? Are they overreacting, or what is what they're doing reasonable? And then you can figure out where to go from there next. If you've done something that merits being barred from school property, well, then you've got to look at your options and how to respond to that. If you feel like the school was being, it's overkill, all I did was said I wasn't happy, and they told me it wasn't, if there's nothing there that merits being kept off school grounds, well, then your response is going to be, we believe preventing us from school property is not measured, and we're going to legally force our presence on the school grounds because it's our right to be there. We didn't do anything to jeopardize that. So you have to evaluate what took place from a third party, and then make decisions according after that.
Okay. Chris, appreciate it as always. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Aaron.